Hi, I'm Christine Fife. I'm the Vice President at Selling Wine Strategies Marketing Consultancy. I am also the founder of the Wine Pro Grapevine online community, and I'm really excited to do the second panel in the series that's sort of a spinoff of the podcast, the Wine Pro podcast. And today we're going to be talking to four amazing folks here about the topic of collaboration, working together to sell more wine. So I've got some amazing uh, leadership here from four different wineries, and I'd love for you guys to go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then we'll talk about how you guys are collaborating with other wineries, other businesses, and what that's doing for you. So, Tiffany, can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, hi. I am with Goose Estate Winery. We are a winery located in Washington State. I'm our general manager of direct consumer sales and hospitality. And really, what that means is I oversee all of our tasting rooms. We currently have four of them, three winery tasting rooms, which house our winery and cider, and one spirits tasting room for Munson Ranch distillers.
Awesome. And Kristi, could you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Kristi Devine. I'm the general manager at the Vineyardist, located in the northwestern corner of the Napa Valley in Calistoga on Diamond Mountain. It's a 183-acre estate with 24 acres planted. We produce just about 1,000 cases a year by the amazing winemaker Tony Biaggi, and looking forward to collaborating.
Awesome. And Darlene.
I'm Darlyne Miller. I am the general manager of Riverain Vineyards. We produce about 1,200 cases of wine and are really just sort of getting started and getting a little bit more well known. So collaboration is going to be a key to that. We make our wines at Meningwall. Thomas River Brown is our winemaker, and we host tastings there as well.
Awesome. And our final guest, Anthony.
I am Anthony Washington. I'm director of Rewa Vineyards in Coombsville, Napa Valley. Our wines are made by Celia Welsh and Mike Wolf, a little 50-acre estate, all estate grown fruit. I'm also on the board of the Coombsville Fitness Growers, building an AVA through collaboration with other wineries, as well as I'm the vice president of a referral network group called the Mercury Syndicate. So I'm looking forward to discussing this with everybody. I've kind of had a different little perspective. I'm the second startup winery, so I'll talk a little bit about how we collaborate to build those wineries in the beginning as well. So
Awesome. That's
cheers.
fantastic. Well, I thank you all for being here. I know a lot of wineries. We certainly in my business, um, uh, we recommend to our winery clients that they consider doing some collaboration, whether that's with another winery, with an association, whether it's with other types of businesses, because if you have your own audience and that business has its own audience, there's no reason why you can't introduce them to each other and hopefully both do better. So I think I'm going to start off by asking a question here. And I'm going to start with Darlene because Darlene has just moved to Riverain Vineyards, but she has vast experience at her previous winery in collaboration. So, Darlene, what benefits does, you know, will Riverain get? But the your past experience, what were the benefits wineries were receiving from collaborating? Like, why bother? What would you tell
Right.
someone about that?
Well, I think one of the biggest questions we ever get in hospitality is where else shall we go? We'd love to think people only drink our wines, but we all know that's not true. We don't even drink our own wines exclusively. We drink other people's wines as well. So we always, try to refer people to like-minded wineries, whether in farming styles, taste profile, winemaker, whatever it may be, whatever the interest is of the client. And if you just take that a step further, that's sort of where the collaboration comes from. It's not just a referral base, but it's truly how can we support each other on the road with events, through organizations, through networking, all of those things. we want to make our clients happy. And the best way to do that in referrals is by handing them off, if you will, to another like-minded winery. And so by collaborating in events, travel, all that sort of thing, you're essentially doing that. And I've done probably 300 or so road shows with anywhere between 2 to 8 wineries around the country for the past several years. And that's, again, sort of the same idea. Let's bring all of our like-minded wine enthusiasts, and yes, you like mine, but you may like them and them and them and them as well.
Right.
And it just sort of has spiraled.
Do any of the other three have, is there more that you feel you get out of it than what Darlyne was commenting on? I guess
I'll
not.
go.
All right, Anthony.
I'll go. No, I mean, Darlene's correct. One of the currencies we deal with as wineries here in Napa Valley is referrals of business to other people. So, when I send my clients to other people, I want to know that my friends like Darlyne and Kristi are going to take care of them like I would take care of my guests. So what that does, that builds a strong relationship between us and our clients, because then they develop this trust. I've become their guy in Napa Valley. Not to mention, it sends them some great people where I can share those referrals. And hopefully, if Kristi and Darlyne get great sales out of these people as I did, they will send me referrals back. That's our currency with one another, right? So another thing that we do that we talk less about here is that, when I worked with my prior winery was a Melka winery, and Melka does this thing with Atelier Melka, all the wineries that he makes, where they collaborate together, not just on referrals, but also best practices, knowledge, things of that nature. So they'll get together once a quarter, and they'll say, hey, look, let's talk about referrals. Let's talk about, what kind of POS system you're using. What are you using for CRM? Do you have a distributor in Texas? Who's your favorite distributor in Texas? It's whatever knowledge you can kind of share with each other to make each other stronger. You know what I mean? So all boats rise with the tide kind of deal. So we help each other out in a way with sharing knowledge. You can also share resources, you know what I mean? So there's times when you can, do marketing together and things of nature, cross-pollinate through your brands and ways like that. In times we've done events where we'll do a holiday gifting thing where it's kind of a referral thing, but not really. It's kind of like, all right, we're going to do 6 wineries, 2 wines apiece, 1 high-end wine, 1 low-end wine. You have an opportunity to send this gift package out and get either 3 different types of wines. You can get, all right, I'm just going to do all the low-end wines. I'm just going to do all the high-end wines, or I'm going to do a mixed case of each. So that allows us to kind of cross-pollinate as well. So I don't know. There's a lot of different ways we do this. It's for sales. It's for knowledge. It's for exposure. As I said, I was in startups prior, so well, I'm still in a startup, I guess you could say. But we collaborate on different ways. When you do events with, say, 6 or 7 wineries, it's less about the sales and more about the contacts. So all of a sudden, then if I go to a market, like say I want to be in Dallas, Texas, if I go to 6 wineries, I'm gathering their contacts as well. I may not be able to offer them as much in way of as a new winery in way of like bringing clients, but then maybe I offer more resources. So maybe I say, all right, well, I found the venue and I did the legwork on the caterer and I did this, that, the other. So that way I can contribute as well while getting something back from everyone else. And it's kind of an understood thing if you're the right group of wineries, that you understand, hey, look, I may not be able to bring all the people, but I can bring something else. That's kind of it in a nutshell, but I'm sure there's way more things that we're not discussing, but that's kind of the way I feel about it.
I'm really glad
think,
go ahead, Tiffany.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Darlyne and Anthony really hit it on the head. We are in such a unique industry that we're farmers. We have retail locations. We have on-premise. We have off-premise. As Anthony said, the importance of knowing different distributors in different states. And there's so much information that we can share and bring to the table. To go back again to Anthony saying rising tides float all boats. We're not just dealing in people coming out and tasting our wine. It's experiences, it's the hospitality, and being able to put that all together. I think sometimes we kind of get lumped in, for instance, like for best practices, right? The wine industry in the United States is still really young. And so we will go to other industries, say like the restaurant, or we'll look at retail like Nordstrom's and box chains and say, what can we do? But we're so much beyond that, because oftentimes we encompass, some of us even have little restaurants in our spot. So to be able to talk with a peer and see what they're doing and not always have to reinvent the wheel is valuable currency.
Yeah.
Totally. And I'm really glad you guys brought that up, because when I conceived of this panel and talking about collaboration, I really was not thinking the other end of it, where you can collaborate to benefit other aspects, not just sales. So sharing resources in different ways, and of course those kinds of things are really critical. We all know that being in the wine industry, you talk to other wineries all the time. So I'm really glad you guys brought that up, because it wasn't even on my radar for this topic. But what do you, but back to the topic in terms of um, referring people, that's one kind of collaboration. Um, what what other kinds of collaboration programs do you do? I'll start with Kristi. Darlyne mentioned one, doing road shows, and well, I'd love to have you speak more about that, Darlyne. But Kristi, what kind of collaborations are you doing to improve your sales and broaden your reach as a brand?
Certainly. So, a few things that we've done just in 2025 is partnered with a local charity in North Carolina, did a blitz with them, which was, I mean, a feel good sort of situation, right? So, supporting a charity that's near and dear to someone's heart, as well as offering them incredible wine. It was not only extremely successful from a sales and relationship building, but brand awareness, the restaurants in which we had these events. You know, it doesn't look like I'm just going in and doing another pouring event, which they may see many people, distributors, etc. I was supporting something local and something that many of them were passionate about, and that they could connect with. So I think allowing those feelings to go beyond the experience of wine and kind of the romance, the talking, the art, the food, but also to hit home on something deeper. Another thing that we have done is, work with a small cutlery, high-end cutlery firm to create little gifting items for our customers. So that way, when they use that little knife to cut their cheese, they're potentially thinking about the Vineyardist. So I think anything that raises brand awareness, whether that's road shows, whether that's partnering, to Anthony's credit, even if there's not the immediate sales, you can almost guarantee that if you go on a road show and you meet all these people, you're going to be first in line when they actually come out and visit. They're going to say, oh gosh, we didn't get a chance to purchase any Rewa, or we got a couple bottles. We need to go visit Anthony. It makes it easy. And I think anything we can do to make it easier for a customer to connect and to think about us is what we should be doing. And also aligning yourself with what makes sense. Not everything makes sense, and it really shouldn't.
Right. Yeah, it's not one suggestion is not going to be right for every winery. But Darlyne, talk to us about how your road shows that you've done, how they worked.
Yeah, it's really a matter of, again, sort of aligning with wineries that have similarly situated mindsets in terms of either farming or wine selection, that sort of thing. But also, in particular in Napa, king is, cab is king. So you also don't want to have a room of 5 wineries and nothing but Cabernet. So you kind of have to look at what everybody's offerings are, price points, all that sort of thing. And then you have to be able to travel with these people, because you're going to be on the road for 4 or 5 days. So what you may really like their wine, but perhaps you don't like the person that we'd be on the road with, which doesn't do anyone any good either. So personally, I have up to about 20 different wineries that I've traveled with at any given time, and I've had as few as 3 in a room and as many as 8 in a room. And we'll generally do 3 nights in different cities. So we'll do Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, and it's kind of like a circus car of wine clowns, and we roll up and we jump out and we do our, pouring for 3 hours, and we go on to the next city and do it again. But again, we send out invitations to our list, so everybody's branded together on those invitations. We run one order form at the event, so everybody is represented equally. We allocate how many guests each winery can invite so that there's not an overwhelming number of one winery sort of owning the room. But it's really about, again, sort of finding that balance of people you like, have a good wine selection, and cities that work for everybody. Often there's going to be an emerging market, and one or two of the wineries don't necessarily have a huge presence, but that's part of it. We're in this for the marketing and the business development as well, and we all want that. So of those, say, 3 cities, one of us is generally going to have an off, sort of quieter night in terms of our guests, but that's where we build our business.
So, for a winery that's never done a roadshow like that, what would you suggest that they do? I mean, literally, are they reaching out to a few wineries, then they all work together to, plan it out? Where do you have the most folks? Where do what cities do you have a lot of people in? And then you're finding a venue there and inviting all of, each
Yeah.
winery's contacts in that area to that venue.
Yeah, all those things. It's we each sort of have people that we gravitate towards. We all have networking groups that we're a part of, perhaps vintner organizations that we're a part of. So you already sort of have your people, if you will, and or those winery referrals that you make, a lot of back and forth with. And then from there, yeah, look at your list and really uh, glean it for what cities work for everybody, that you have a good representation of clients that are going to be interested in seeing you. You might have a number of clients in a certain city, but they just don't come out, or it's difficult to ship wine, or any number of reasons why it might not be a good fit. As smaller brands, most of us, I will say, on between Kristi, Anthony, and I, we may not have wide distribution. And so that actually plays a big part of it as well. If you have big distribution across the country, your distributor is not always going to be enthusiastic about that. So it's sort of finding wineries that can make that happen. But yeah, how we often do it, we'll have 6 wineries. So we divide 3 cities, we divide 2 wineries per night. One finds a venue, one finds a caterer, and then we go from there. Just
Awesome.
lather, rinse, repeat.
And Anthony, what types of collaborations have you done?
So we've done the road shows, and I like to think about it 2 different ways for me. Like I like the bigger road shows for, like I said, once again, building the list. I think when you get, 6 wineries together, 7 wineries together, and you invite 20 people apiece, that's a lot of people there. But I'll say this, right now I'm kind of straying away from those because while they're great for building the list, they're not as great for sales sometimes because we are also splitting those clients between 7 different wineries. So if I'm a client coming into that tasting, I'm not going to buy $3,000 from every winery there, right? So I'm going to kind of spread that out, maybe not evenly to the people that are participating. So it's more for me. Next time I go to Austin, Texas, Dallas, wherever I'm going, I can look at that same list because that's one of the things. That's one of the benefits of doing it is you get the list from that area. You say, hey, look, I know we didn't get to taste together last time. You were here. You didn't get to top of my table, but I'm back. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden in Texas, you're building this list in that area. So I look at it. I also do smaller ones with 1 or 2 wineries, and usually those are more focused sit-down dinners, and we'll each take 2 courses, bring wine for those 2 courses, and that's another way of doing it. And to me, those have been better for sales. Those have been better for generating sales because it's more focused, less wineries. It's in a usually a dining room setting. But those have been pretty successful as far as that's concerned. We also do events here, and I told you about the events we do. We do cross marketing by selling wine together in a package form. We also do events here in Napa Valley where we invite, we'll have 8 wineries at one host winery's estate. We'll invite people for a big party. One time we had a big Magnum party where everything was served out of Magnums and, had 120, 150 people there and sold wine that way. I also, We also, I was going to talk about this a little bit, so Darlene was talking a little bit about how you figure out how to do this, who to do it with, things of that nature. I do agree that it's kind of tough when you have a bunch of Cabernet producers in the same room at the same time. But I'll say this, if you were, say, a Pinot Noir producer and a Cab producer, not all people who drink Pinot Noir drink Cab, and not all people who drink Cab drink Pinot Noir. So sometimes it's nice to have that focus group of people serving the same thing at the same time, because hopefully you're bringing all these Cab lovers to the room together. And they're saying, hey, I've had all these other Cabs, and yet I haven't had that one over there, which is mine. You know what I mean? So what I like to think about when I do these events is like, I'm not selling my wine to my clients because they've already bought my wine. So I'm selling your wine to my clients because they have not bought your wine. So that's how you help each other out in that situation. Now, there's a couple of different ways we do this. Sometimes we do this at people's homes. If they have a large enough home and they want to host us in their home, we go into their home. They'll usually get a caterer or something like that, or sometimes they'll cook. And then, they either have glassware, we need to rent glassware, and then we'll go invade their home for a night with all of their friends, which is cool for the client because they're like, I got 3 wineries come to the house. You know what I mean? I'm this cool dude. I got these wineries coming,
That's the coolest person in the bunch.
Yeah, those are fun, And then there's events where we do it in restaurants or, something like that, where you'll say, all right, we're going to book this restaurant. You either have a private dining room that's large enough, or you have an event space that's large enough, or we're going to get the entire restaurant for this day that you're having like maybe you're closed on Mondays or something like that. So we'll take over the restaurant. They have the glassware, their staff works, you tip out the staff, you pay for the venue. Usually there's some type of minimum or something like that. We've done it in places where our event spaces. But one of the new cool ones that I've kind of found, we've done it a few times, is you ever heard of Peer Space? Peer Space is this place where you can rent. It's almost like an Airbnb for event spaces, and we kind of found some pretty good success with that. Now, not all these are the same. Some of them are more able to transition into a kind of a wine tasting event space. Some of them in certain states have to have licensing and things of that nature. Sometimes your caterer has the licensing, so you can utilize that. But in that situation, you'll have to get the caterer, the glassware, and everything else that's involved with that. So, but that's been able to open us up in places where maybe it's a little harder to rent out a restaurant. So say like a Chicago or a New York or something of that nature where, you might be able to find the event space, but you couldn't really find a restaurant that's able to host you with that large of a group.
Yeah.
So those have been some
And
ways
of course,
we
as you
utilize
get
that.
going, you guys have vast years of experience, but as a winery gets going, they're going to have a few trial and error things. And I'm always harping to my clients about you need to measure things like how much did you set some goals? Did I get X amount of new people on my list? Did I sell X amount of wine? What was my cost compared to that? Did I make my current customers want to come back to me? All measurable things. And when you don't quite hit those goals, then you alter it a little bit, change it up, switch
And
how you do it.
I'll tell you, you also measure referrals as well. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So like, if I'm sending somebody referrals, a ton of referrals, I kind of ask them, hey, how'd they do? Okay, they spent this much. Okay, great. And when they send me referrals, I kind of say, all right, who's sending me referrals? How much do these people spend? So I can understand who do I need to take care of? Who do I need to feed here with my referrals going forward? Because I want to make sure that I'm rewarding people who rewarded me.
Right.
So I think you need to have those metrics, in place. How much did we spend on this event in New York, and how much did we really get out of it? You know what I mean? Should we do that again, or should we do it differently? One of the key things that we do in the beginning of this process is we usually the wineries that you're gonna work with. And honestly, I'll say this as well. I kind of like the wineries being in this similar price point because that means that your clients are shopping in a similar area. So we'll get together and we'll say, all right, what the five cities or that we're strong in. So we'll look at each person. We'll look at their list and say, what is our highest LTVs, lifetime values on the top 5 cities that we all have, and then we'll say, all right, let's narrow that down to 3. So all right, we did Charlotte last year. Let's do Chicago this year. Let's do Naples. Let's do that. So we'll think about it like from a really a scientific perspective here. We're like, where can we have the most success? You know what I mean? Where do we have the most people? Where the people spend the most money? Let's go try to hit those areas up, and then we'll alternate that yearly. So that's kind of how we do collaborative events together. So we do cross promotions together as far as like different things. There's another thing we do is branding cohesion, essentially. So I told you that I'm a member of the Mercury Syndicate. I'm the vice president. That's kind of a branding cohesion thing where we said, all right, there's these other large corporations out there. There's, Gallo and, Harlan and all these other people that are big that kind of work together within their own groups. Well, we're smaller wineries. You know what I mean? We're under 1,000 cases or about 1,000 cases. So we decided to build this referral network together where we're able to kind of cross brand and brand it under Mercury Syndicate. So now we have about 22 wineries working together as a larger corporation would do. You know what I mean? So we're trying to keep it within ourselves and refer back and forth once amongst each other. We're doing the same things we did with Melka, which is kind of like, best practices and things of that nature, these events and stuff like that. So that's another way we're able to do this. But additionally, when I'm with the Coombs Residential Growers, we're trying to build a branding for an entire AVA.
Right.
So that's another way we work together and say, all right, this AVA, if the AVA gets better and bigger and people recognize what Coombsville is all about, then all of a sudden maybe it makes it easier to sell wine within Coombsville. So that's another way we kind of work together, which is not exactly direct sales, but like it does, once again, all ships rise with a tide.
Yes.
So, and for that, I go to things like TechSom and SomCon and stuff like that. And it's just me, but I'll represent 6 different wineries there. I'll pour all the wines, talk to the Samis in that area. And essentially my goal in that is to build this brand awareness of Coombsville to the point where like all of a sudden you go to 6 different states, 6 different cities, and there's Coombsville on the wine list, or there's a retail shop that has a Coombsville section, so.
Awesome. Tiffany, other than road shows or things that they've mentioned, what other types of collaborations are you doing?
Well, Anthony just touched on part of that, and that is collaboration with
Oh, I think we've lost your audio, Tiffany.
Can you hear me now?
Well, can't hear you. There, wait, you're coming back?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Better.
Yay. Sorry, I don't know what that was. But Anthony had touched on it, and then Kristi had mentioned it with charities as well, but different community organizations. So being as a whole, if I look at Washington Wine, we have the Washington Wine Commission. So that's somebody who we're naturally going to be partnering with and collaborating with. And that can be large scale events, since like March is Washington Wine Month and August is Washington Wine Month. It can be hyper local, where today in our Woodenville tasting room, we in Woodenville are a unique area where we're not necessarily a growing region. We're either retail tasting room locations or production where our fruit is brought over into the Woodenville area. And so we have Woodenville wine country, or if I break that down even more, we have kind of the strip mall that we're located in. And so we have a neighborhood group that meets regularly. So you can make that as hyper local as you want to. And then finding with each one of the kind of conversations that we've had so far is, I think, finding that shared goal. So we've talked about goals and metrics. So are we doing this event to drive tasting room sales? Are we doing this to drive knowledge of Goose Gap AVA? Are we doing this to drive education on sustainable WA and our sustainable vineyards and what it even an estate vineyard is? Are we doing this to drive our wine club? And I know that that's something I think most of us, no matter what size we are, is a great focus for us, and we have loyal customers and club members. In one way, and this is a collaborative one, again, going down to a small region, but we are doing a shared club event. So you can do it a weekend, a month, but we share our club members. So if you were a member at Goose Ridge, and this goes back to what Anthony is saying, is I'm not necessarily selling to our Goose Ridge members, I'm selling to Rocky Pond, which is next to us. And the great things about this event is it takes a lot of the work away. We know these are people who love wine clubs. We know these are people who like wine. And in many ways, we know what kind of wine they like based on the winery that they're a member of. So anytime that we can do those types of events and get our name out there and meet new customers, and create a shared experience that's valuable to everyone. Again, we want to give the same experience to our neighbors that they are going to get at Goose Ridge, and vice versa. So it's really important that we're creating that trust, not only in the style of wines that we're having and the quality of wines that we're having, but in the hospitality experience that they're receiving from us.
Sure. I think in the past few years, I've seen more and more wineries that will, maybe two wineries team up and they offer tasting club member privileges. So your club members will get privileges at our winery and ours get privileges at yours for a weekend or whatever it is. And if they're vastly different experiences that might make your winery not your clients question that. Some styles of wineries have their time and place. You can walk up to a tasting bar somewhere, but if your winery only does private sit down experiences that are highly curated, that might not be the best winery partner to do a shared club member promotion with.
Right.
Let me ask you guys, what would you say for a winery that's listening right now and that's never done collaboration? I can imagine in their minds, they're thinking, well, that seems like I'd have to do a lot of work and I might not get any sales, but they might just get all the sales from my customers. What would you say to that person as to, that kind of fear? Anyway, Kristi?
I
Yeah.
would say penny wise, pound foolish. Truly, I think that our entire purpose of being in the wine industry is not only to work with Mother Nature, but it's to make people feel good and feel like they're a part of something and bring them into our story. And if you are able to do that correctly and effectively, even if there isn't an immediate ROI, you will see those benefits in terms of referrals, communication, even just brand awareness when there's so many options, which it's like we don't have the luxury of working for cell phones or electronics where there's 10 or 15 people that are kind of the main places you go to. Maybe let's use speakers, for instance, right? But in wine, you have so many options. So I think when you can give an opportunity or another option to your people or have an opportunity to meet new people, you should take it with grace if it aligns, if price points are similar, if experience is similar. And truly, it's up to you to convert. It's not up to the other winery. The onus is on you. And if you create a memorable experience, it will come back to you. I think this immediate gratification that we sometimes are seeking, it seems maybe people are seeking more, especially after the insanity that we experienced during the COVID years, where all of our customers that normally eat out are eating at home and consuming wine at a fast clip. We're still continuing to grow. It's just not quite as crazy. And invest in people, use your time, and the results will follow if you're doing it correctly.
Awesome. Any one of the three of you have something a little different than that?
Yeah, I would just say that, a lot of times being small, we are already wearing a lot of hats and our time is at a premium, and finding the energy and carving out those moments to create something on our own is already time consuming. So when you partner, when you collaborate, you're essentially having help where you wouldn't have it if you're doing it by yourself. So yes, it is a lot of work, and no, your return may be nothing. That may be what happens, but you don't know unless you try. And the same thing is true as if you're hosting a tasting, you may walk away with people, or people may walk away not purchasing anything. You've invested all that time and energy. And yeah, it's a lot of work for perhaps no return. That's sometimes the nature of what we do. So if you can, combine your efforts, it actually helps alleviate some of the burden. One of the things you had mentioned about or asked about was finding people to collaborate with and how to do it. One thing that I think has been key for me in moving in this direction is some of the nonprofit stuff, as Tiffany and Kristi were mentioning. If you get in on auction lots, many of these nonprofit organizations have wine auctions, and that's a great place to start, is become part of someone's auction lot. And then that sort of becomes part of the collaboration just in and of itself. Even if you're not at the event, it's a great way to get your brand in front of a lot of wine-like minded people. And there's not a lot of effort involved at all. It's just knowing who the people are to say, hey, if you're at XYZ nonprofit event, I'd love to be part of your auction lot. We can provide a tour and tasting or whatever it might be, and that starts the ball rolling too. But without any effort.
Exactly. Like everybody kind of touched on that, and I was going to, Darlene kind of beat me to it, but I was going to say that auctions are a big way to collaborate together. You know what I mean? Especially if you're going to the same area at the same time. Think about it. I use auctions as a reason to go to an area. You know what I mean? First off, you're going to meet amazing people there who are interested in wine and same things that you're looking to get into. Second off, if you're going there and say Kristi and Darlene and Tiffany are going there at the same time, we could say, hey, look, I see you're going to this auction. Why don't we do some events around the auction? So now that we're here, let's get our clients together in Omaha or wherever the action is, and let's do a dinner together. Let's do a tasting together. Let's do something together. So it gives you an opportunity to work around that auction as well. Not to mention, as Darlene noted, the auction lot itself is kind of critical. That's the auction lots I prefer to do are ones that bring people back to Napa Valley, that bring people back to us. So it'll be a situation where one winery has lodging, one winery is going to do a dinner, one winery is going to do a lunch, and we'll bring those auction lot winners back to Napa Valley. And then in return, sometimes we'll share those with other members of our referral network. So they may see all of us in that trip, or they may have more time, and they may see other people that we're referred back and forth with. So you're building this big referral, cohesion kind of thing. We're all working together and bringing the stuff back.
Because
Another thing I'll say is this.
You may not be able to do it that time when they ask you, but you can say, hey, I can refer you to somebody else who can do it.
Sure.
Exactly.
Or if there's three of us that were in an auction lot together, that's one day, and they're there for 3 days, then there's other days, So, but I'll say this as well. I meant to mention this earlier. There's one famous time that almost everybody in Napa collaborated together, two really, 2017 and 2020. As you know, probably in Napa Valley, we had fires in Napa Valley, and there was a lot of damage done to Napa Valley. That was the time when I've seen the most collaboration I've ever seen between any amount of the wineries here. Everybody collaborated together. People were helping each other store fruit. They were helping each other use their wineries to do different types, use their equipment and things of that nature. People were storing fruit in different people's caves. For us, we hosted another winery, a partner of ours who lost also their winery and part of their vineyard. They still had guests coming to town. So for a year, they hosted with us. So there was all these collaborations that happened during that time that shows you kind of the sense of community that is in the wine industry. You know what I mean? It's like, I like to think about it like this. This is one of the only industries you'll see we send our clients to our competitors in a sense. You know what I mean? Although I don't consider our people competitors. Right. We send our clients to other people that are normally would be our competitors. What I like to think about it is this. It's not us against us. Napa's not against Napa. We're against every other wine region in the world. We don't want you going to Bordeaux. We don't want you going to Burgundy. We want you to come to Napa.
We want you to
go
enjoy.
But coming after you, Anthony. I'm coming after
you.
They
can go to Washington. It's okay. It's okay if they go to Washington.
Now that we met, we can collaborate.
I love it.
If I got people coming to Washington, they're coming to you. So.
I'm curious as to what people are doing right now to draw people into town. I actually talked to Christine a little bit about this, but I was looking for something on Mother's Day to do in and around. I was looking in Napa and Sonoma, and there was hardly anything. Obviously, smaller, higher end wineries. We don't normally do a Mother's Day brunch. We don't normally have a lot of events. That's just not exactly how the business works. But I'm curious. It's something I'm talking about with my Wine Women Forum, some of the larger wineries, to get people in. We also need to make sure that some of our other partners who maybe aren't exactly our size and at our price point, my guests don't just only go to see places that are $300 and above. They also love to go to the crab boil at Farniente. They have these stalwart brands that they absolutely love. And what I'm noticing is a really big decrease in events in Napa. And even when I'm looking in Sonoma, obviously some things are on private mailing lists and I'm just not privy to it. But it did make me think, especially a lot of my friends with young kids were like, we would love to come up, especially wineries that don't normally allow kids. And like, I was like, how do we kind of encourage other people to maybe think about those events? Honestly, I'm thinking about doing a Mother's Day brunch next year so that some of my younger, doesn't really matter how old they are, but especially for people with some toddlers, if they want to come up, we can make flower crowns and sip Sauvignon Blanc and have a little fun. It's not something I've ever thought of doing before, but I was really surprised at the lack of events, especially when I'm constantly hearing about a lack of traffic. And it was just, I'm like, I'm looking for something, and I'm from the
may not realize.
Kristi,
Tiffany may not realize that this tourism right now in Napa Sonoma is a little bit less than it used to be. It's down a bit right now, and there's lots of reasons why. But that's being that the other three guests here are from this area. So and yeah,
I think it's actually across the U.S. and in all wine regions. We're definitely feeling that in Washington State as well, and we hear about it from our friends in Oregon. And I personally, in the last year, have actually really dug into events. So I'd love to share more with you today or off, including a Mother's Day brunch that we did. And we've even started doing a market. And what I mean like that, it is a traditional, what you would think of a farmer's market style. We have one June 19th. There's 25 plus local makers. So we try to have it be specific. We try not to do any multi-level marketing. That's just our preference. We also pair that again with all of our wines. So we're not doing tastings that day. It's all wine by the glass. We're bringing in food trucks. So we have 7 food trucks that come out that day. We have local musicians. We do it from 12 to 8 p.m. and it's really taken off. It's been one of the best ways to get people through our doors that we've never met before. It's shocking every time. I have been a parking lot attendant at these before, and when it's packed and I'm, waving and saying, "Oh, have you been here? Do you know where to park?" And, "Oh no, we live right down the street, but we've never been here before." And it's shocking to me that that's a regular occurrence and that we're hearing that over and over. And then to go back to your last question about, what would I do to combat maybe somebody with a negative attitude is, one, I am probably a little Pollyanna. I also believe in karma and I think we should manifest everything. So I'd like to go into things with a good attitude, and I want to do that to be able to set examples for my team, because if I'm going to an event with a negative attitude, what does that tell my team about that event? Or how is that going to show to our club members and our guests there as well? And we're only as good as what our goal is and what we've stated. So goals are so important. And with the market, my goal is maybe we're not going to be selling cases that day, but even if we sell a glass of wine, we can capture somebody's email. We can get their first and last name. We now have a record of them at our location, and we can use that data again, in the future to be able to segment our email list or to call people back to go to the next market or to the Mother's Day brunch. And so I think this year events are going to be really big for Goose Ridge because we are seeing traffic down, and I don't want to say I'm just going to throw, something at the wall and see what sticks, but a little bit is, I think this is a time to experiment and to invest in our community and see what we can do in our own backyard to help drive that traffic. We've talked a lot about collaboration with other wineries, and I know that that's what the conversation is definitely about, but we are in kind of an unprecedented time that when I started in the industry, it was all about, reaching out to get reviewed, for print, we were still advertising on TV and on radio. And now we can collaborate with influencers, which still blows my mind every day, right? Like, I'm like, what is this? And, trying to navigate what that looks like. And we've all said it is that one, it's okay to say no, and two, not everything fits. And so finding things that work for your brand, whether that's a charity, whether that's an influencer, and I think we can use influencers at this time with wineries, that it doesn't have to be just about wine. If we want to drive people to our area, what can we do with a travel influencer, with a lifestyle influencer, with somebody whose sole focus is on food? Can we work with a local hotel, a restaurant, even a hot air balloon, you name it. Like, what can we do to,
I have a off the wall thing only because the customer brought it up, but something to think about is I had a customer who basically pays for almost her entire life in Bitcoin. And she was like, I purposely go to places that accept Bitcoin. So whether it's high-end boutiques or restaurants or car dealerships, private sellers, that sort of stuff. And it wasn't something I had thought of before, nor do I have any clue really if it's something that we would do. But I thought that was an interesting way to get, she said there's an entire network of people that purposely seek out businesses that accept Bitcoin, which I thought was.
I have a whole concept on Bitcoin releases.
Hold on, Anthony, because this is the perfect opportunity for the last question that I wanted to ask you all. And I'm going to go to Anthony first because he clearly has got something along these lines, and you ladies can think about it if you need. Are there any like really innovative, crazy ideas that you have thought of doing but maybe haven't implemented yet, or you're about to, but that, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you would have been like, I don't think so. So Anthony.
That concept is innovative. I can't tell you about it because I'm wanting to hold it. I have to hold it for right now, but it's super innovative.
Well, is there one that you
it's
can
interesting.
share?
And there is one I can share. So lately, golf and wine have this big synergy. What we've been wanting to do, which we haven't done yet, I used to be a sommelier at Augusta National Golf Club, which is where they play the Masters golf tournament. There's a lot of golfers into wine, and every country club in the United States, that's still a valuable place where you can sell wine. So we were thinking about having a golf tournament here in Napa with every hole sponsored by a different winery, vintners playing in the tournament with our guests, and then having a dinner the first night, dinner the second night, dinner the third night, and then kind of bringing people to Napa on a time like June, July, when it's kind of traditionally a little bit more slow here, and doing something to build loyalty, brand awareness, sell some wine, things of that nature. So we're thinking about doing a golf tournament. I think that'd be interesting. And then, it doesn't have to be just here. It could be other places as well. You could take that golf tournament on the road. You could take it to North Carolina. You could take it to Florida. You could take it to Arizona in the winter. You know what I mean? So there's opportunity to connect on that level on a lot of different places with a lot of different people. There's a lot of the times people who collect wine play golf. So
yeah. Tiffany, Kristi, Darlyne, anybody got any other, things they've been thinking about but haven't?
Yeah, it's not super innovative, but because it's kind of done already, but from a collaborative standpoint, it hasn't really been done. So Bottle Rock is about 3 blocks from my house every year. It's a big, Napa concert for 3 days on end, and several wineries get a booth, and you sell your wine, and they, sell it by the glass, and you have sort of a lounge area that is branded with your brand. But as small wineries, it's perhaps cost prohibitive. So it would be fun to perhaps get 4 or 5 wineries to pitch in and do their own hospitality tent and have their wines available. I don't know how it would work from a wine standpoint with selling it and all of that, but when I was there a couple of weeks ago, I'm thinking this is great, except for the small brands. Like most of the brands that were there were big and could afford it. Yeah, it's a big marketing spend.
Darlyne and Kristi, I was going to tell you this. So Kristi was talking about doing something like, an event and stuff like here, and you just kind of nailed it, Darlyne. So for the last 6 years, we've done this collaborative event around Bottle Rock. Essentially, it's like 6 or 7 different wineries that get together to have this event from 10 to 2 or 11 to 2 on the Saturday of Bottle Rock. So it's kind of like a pre-game before people go out and start seeing a lot of the later shows. But we've had pretty good success with it. You know what I mean? So this year we did it at the Archer Hotel, on the bottom floor of the Archer Hotel. We had wineries from Paso Robles and Napa Valley there. So, and essentially once again, we all invite our guests. They come in. Now, I was going to talk about this, and I don't think anybody touched on this yet. One of the challenges of anytime you do these events together is how much do we charge? What do we charge? You know what I mean? Another challenge might be, how do you list the wines? So you kind of wanted to be apples and apples and things of that nature. So you wanted to kind of be like, all right, some people might have less expensive wines. In the past, what I would do is this. If my wines were not the same price or they were a higher price than everyone else's, I would alter how I present my wine on the list to kind of match up there. So if they're at very low price, then I would just sell it mine by the bottle. If there's a very high price, then I would sell mine in a 3-pack, you know what I mean, or something of that nature. I would sell my Sauvignon Blanc in a 6-pack to kind of meet their prices, where that way it looks like the same. But as far as like price, as far as like, how do we charge? A lot of times when we do these events, we're just trying to break even. So we may not make any money off the event. We just want to pay for our costs of doing the event. The wine is essentially free, and we're just trying to break even on the rentals and the glassware. I mean, all the stuff, all the catering and all that other stuff. But if you charge too much, then people think the way they supported the event was by showing up and paying that $150 for the tasting, right? So they feel like, oh, I did my part, so now I'm not going to buy wine because I've already done my part.
Right.
So the challenge is this: do you charge a little, a lot? If you don't charge at all, then you run into the problem of people think that they don't even have to show up. Oh, I don't have to show up. I didn't have to put a credit card down. So now if I don't want to show up, I'm not going to show up. So it's a challenge of like find that equilibrium of like, I want to make sure people are still going to come, kind of weed out people who are just, looky-looing and stuff like that. Versus, I want to cover my cost. It's just an interesting way to think about things of like pricing. Like I really don't know the answer to this. I've done it many different ways. This particular Bottle Rock, we did it for free. We had varying degrees of success. We had a lot of people there. I'm always trying to figure out what's that comfortable medium of how do I charge or do I not charge? How do I keep people to come if I don't charge? What is it? So,
Kristi, Tiffany, any ideas that you've been thinking about but maybe haven't done? And even if it's an idea that you have no idea how to do, but you're just like, God, this has got to work in some way.
I think for me, it's not so much about innovation right now. I mean, I did mention we're trying new events for us. Is some of it's going back to basics. For instance, our Richland tasting room, which is in the heart of our growing region and right next to our winery, is surrounded by our vineyards. And I'm always kind of shocked about how people don't go out into them. I think they feel like they're going to trespass or maybe something's going to happen to them. It is a working farm, but so for our wine club release, we actually did a small walking tour. It was less than a third of a mile, I think, and there were 4 stops, and at each stop we put somebody besides just a winemaker. So maybe it was our bottling manager, maybe it was our cellar master. We had someone from every department of our winery at that location that people could talk to. And I think, again, we work in a unique, especially depending on the size of us, we all wear multiple hats, and more than likely we've each done every part of from start to finish, from the vineyard to the bottle, to hospitality. And folks just want to learn about what we do. We have romanticized our industry, and they have questions. And so agritourism is one area that I see growth right now, and people want to know where their wine's coming from. They want to know about our estate vineyards, and that's something that we have access to and we can show them. We had one station that we not only handpick fruit, but we machine harvest fruit, and so we brought out a harvester. And I would say 90% of people had never seen a harvester before. The number of people that wanted to take their picture with a harvester over our winemaker was kind of funny, but they want to know each part of the process, and they love that. It doesn't always have to be that we're using a barrel thief to take wine out and doing barrel tastings. It can be a simple conversation with somebody about something that we see as mundane, and part of our everyday life that they just find fascinating.
Yeah. Kristi, any ideas you've had?
I don't know that there's anything that hasn't really been said. I know that what I really like to do is just stay open. I think customers often have great ideas in which we can launch from. So whether it be that Bitcoin thing, whether it's is there any way we can do a private label? I think just being open to ideas, or my buddies and I have always wanted to like buy a barrel and make a blend. And it's like, even if you don't have a program in place, I think being open to creating a more intimate experience and making someone buys a barrel from you, there's a chance that they're your lifelong customer and they're not going anywhere. World full of so many choices. So I think being open to those things, even if you can't do it one year, is there a year where you're like, yeah, this isn't going to make it, maybe not going to make it into the final blend, but this is something that maybe, we could call Jane or Scott or whoever, and maybe talk to them. So I think the biggest thing, the biggest lesson, I think, is being open. And to Tiffany's point, back to basics. People want to connect with the land. They want to connect with the properties. They want to connect with the people. And people don't follow brands. They follow people. So give them that opportunity.
Yeah. I want to go back real quickly to one thing that I'm not even sure which of you said it, but it was looking at adjacent. I know Anthony mentioned golf. People that travel tend to also drink wine, people that do certain things. But what are people doing today? I am going to share with you something that I'm working on with a client. I have one winery client, and I am helping them to work with two other wineries that are close by on a wine and fitness. So there'll be 3 tastings. It's basically like saying, here's your perfect tasting day. Jump in on this, and each is going to email their own customers about that. But at one, it's going to be yoga and having some wine. At the next one, it's a mindfulness workshop, and then they're going to taste some wine. And then we're still in the thought process on what the third winery is going to do. But, all 3 of those are going to send that out to their people. And those kind of mindfulness, yoga, exercise things are something that a lot of people are liking to do these days. So think outside the box is my point to anyone listening. Think outside the box, but take the advice from these 4 experts to heart. I thank you guys so much for talking with me about this today. You've been really, really amazing, and get out, taste the other wineries, meet the other wineries around you, and you never know what magic can happen. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Cheers.